This is the Dog Savant Podcast with your host, Brett Endies.
Hey everyone, this is the Dog Savant Podcast, episode 11. I'm Brett, I'm your host. Today we're going to talk about the e-collar ban in England. Another trainer that is respected had put out a video that I'm going to play for you also, talking about how he's offering to help dogs, not have to be put to sleep. And the people who legislated this, or however, whatever you want to call it, they are more into putting a dog to sleep than using training tools that, proven when used correctly, do not do any detriment to a dog, do not cause physical harm, and actually help, and in many cases can save their life. So first, what I want to do is talk about some business, so we're not going to get too ahead of ourselves. This is the podcast, so I would like you to please subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff, share with your friends. I want you to, kind of get the word out there because that's what's going to keep this going. I have a Patreon account to support my podcast and videos I do. It's patreon.com/the Dog Savant. My YouTube channel, Dog Training LA, and my website, dogtrainingla.com. All places you can watch my videos, learn more about what I do. Everything is pretty much complimentary. And my show, The Untrainables, comes out on Saturday, September 8th on the Pet Collective network, if you will, on Facebook Watch. Really excited about that. It's going to be a great show. It's going to focus on a lot of these issues we talk about in the podcast. And this podcast is sort of a complement to that show that I recorded the first season for. Let's move on and talk here about the ban of electric shock collars in England. Now, this is coming straight from the RSPCA, which is like their ASPCA, but over there in England. I think it's only England, not all of Europe. So I'm going to just read it. I'll give you my 2 cents. That tends to get me going and drives me to say what I say and do what I do. So ban of electric shock collars in England. Consultation to ban the use of electric shock collars in England. Our dog welfare expert, Dr. Samantha Gaines, said, "We're delighted that the government has listened to the concerns raised by us and other animal welfare organizations and has launched a consultation to ban the use of electric shock collars in England. These cruel collars have been illegal in Wales since 2010, and we've been calling for them to be outlawed in England too." And here's where they get into what their perception of it is. And I'm going to explain to you how, although they have some validity in their perception, when used properly, it's not even close to what they're kind of, putting out there and scaring the general dog-owning public from using these tools, which in many instances, used properly, could help their dogs. So these cruel, electric shock collars used to train and control cats and dogs are not only unacceptable as they cause pain and fear, they're also unnecessary for long-term behavioral change. So a survey carried out by RSPCA's Dog Kind Report found that 88% of dog owners agreed that training shouldn't frighten or hurt their dogs. A worrying 5% said they used electric shock collars. Okay, so first of all, I hate to say this because if you're watching this or listening to this, you're probably a dog owner who's seeking help. I'm on your side, right? But the reason why dogs can have issues around their owners is in a lot of cases, the owner's emotions, impressions, or feeling about how to communicate and train them or deal with their behavior issues are not quite on par of what's going on. What I find is a dog behavior specialist who fixes these problems for dogs and owners is, in most cases, I have to teach the dog owners to be more objective about what's going on because I learned that emotions can cause people to make the wrong choices, project the wrong energy to their dogs, and misperceive something for something other than what it really is. A case in point is like certain kind of training collars. When used properly, they don't cause pain at all, and they keep a dog calm, happy, focused, and they enjoy them because a dog associates them with working, not being completely out of control, which other more emotional-based training tools that make sense to a dog owner do nothing but contribute to a problem. Yes, let me clarify. Anyone can use a shock collar incorrectly if they don't understand what they're doing. So you need to make sure, and look, I think that there should be some kind of definition of, how these things should be used, who should use them, or who should be taught or qualified. That's totally fine because it's like a weapon. A gun in the right hands of someone is no different than a hammer sitting in a toolbox. It's just there as a tool that when properly trained, you can use it properly. And if you're licensed and have been passed or qualified to own one, no harm, no foul. If anything, it's going to be a benefit and make your home or family safer, if you will, right? So with dog tools, it's the same thing. No trainer I know, and look, there's cases, I've commented on it in past podcasts and whatnot. Trainers are very forceful. They're heavy-handed. They use pain or intimidation to motivate a dog to listen, which is not at all what a real balanced or trainer like myself who uses balanced training techniques, but also uses energy a little bit more, of this kind of psychological approach as well. But there's no fear. It's just connecting, and it's really just expecting more from the dog. And the tool can actually build that focus and that connectivity if you can have it in the right context. So what do I believe is not the right context? You just turn the thing up to a high level and you correct your dog for chasing the cat or running out off the property. That to me is going to freak your dog out. Or if you haven't taken months and months to teach your dog a good recall, and now you just expect them to listen, from a third of a mile away out in the woods, and you haven't even taught them to listen in your backyard, right? And now you just crank up the e-collar, expect them to respond. Not even close. Me, who uses them sometimes, I'm not an e-collar trainer, and I think that some trainers do use them and rely on them too much, has learned, and I had shied away from them years ago. I used to use the old, I'll tell you more of my history with using them, because some people don't associate me with e-collars, but I have a long history of using them, understanding them, and again, shying away from them and coming back full circle and finding that in a certain percentage of cases, they're useful. And when you do use them, you don't cause pain. You use levels that I find that owners are so surprised that they will not even feel and their dog will respond to. It's more of the unknown communication as far as how I use it, the well-timed correction, if you will, but not physical intimidation correction, just getting their mind back at attention. Jordan, my producer here, he can get a little bit out of focus, right? So sometimes we're on a project and he gets sidetracked. I have to give him a correction by addressing that he needs to focus on something and complete it before we move on to the next one. Is that mean? Is that abusive? No, I think it's just getting our combined goal accomplished more efficiently, and it might make him do better in other elements other than when he's doing something with me. Right, Jordan? Yes. Okay, so anyway, so that's really to me a correction. It's not, you better listen or else, or please listen. It's too off kilter. The pendulum is swung on two far sides of the fence, and that's what's driving people to be so emotionally driven. And yes, again, there's training collars being used improperly, but people who use these the right way are well trained in it, experienced, are not. And that's what's happening is the professionals are not only being limited now in the tools they can use. It's like telling a carpenter to build a house without that hammer. He'll figure it out, he'll improvise, but at some point they're going to take away the next tool, then they're going to say, use your bare hands. Then what is he going to do, right? So this is what's happening, and that's why there's a lot of trainers sticking up for it, not because they use it exclusively, but because they've learned and they've seen, and they only advocate for dogs. They care the most because they're making their living doing this. And I don't think anyone's going to take the time and patience and effort and hard work to help dogs for a living if they don't want anything but their best interest in heart. So this is a very rational argument coming from the other side, where the other people are coming from emotion. So what started this sidebar was because they're talking about dog owners. What about trainers' experiences, right? They're only talking to the trainers that promote the purely positive agenda, which is all emotional based, and there's no factual evidence that I'm telling you. I've trained probably 500 dogs in e-collar situations, at least from the old school ones to the more recent mini educator type. And I'm telling you, it doesn't hurt the dog unless you crank it up to a level that hurts them. And there is that ability, but if you're responsible and you recognize where it should and shouldn't be used, it's a no-brainer. And I've seen it with my own eyes, dogs that couldn't interact with other dogs, or dogs that really were like at their, that was it. They're going to get put down and they're heavily medicated or whatever, and the e-collar saved their lives. Or it saved their lives in the logistical way where the dog learned to come back on a recall when it was taking off in an unsafe situation. So, that's really how we're seeing it. We're factually explaining it, as you're going to hear in this gentleman's video. I forgot his name. I'll get it in a second. But the other side of it's coming from a lot of emotion. We're not trying to worry, frighten, or hurt dogs, anyone who uses these, unless it's, and again, I think there should be some regulation. Maybe just let professionals use them, and after passing a course, or qualifying an owner, then they can pass that on to them, something of that effect. But banning it completely is such a knee-jerk response. It's ridiculous. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. It just goes in. I'm not going to bore you with all there's a whole thing, and I admittedly didn't read it either, the actual legislation, but it's coming from a place with a lot, and we're also coming from a place where we see the dogs that are so messed up from that type of passive dog training that doesn't provide a balance in correction and reward. Yes, I use treats too, but I don't rely on them, and I don't rely on training collars either. I rely on the connectivity and using those as a way to communicate and tap into the operant conditioning side of things that even we get conditioned as humans. But relying on it or vilifying it based on an emotion and not having the actual experience, that's who they should be listening to. So with that said, we're going to listen to someone who is experienced. And this is, I have actual Facebook friends that I know really well, that I've met in person. Some that you just kind of in passing, of, you made a comment or two and a thank you or how you been.
Okay, short video message.
Let me just take this down here. I think this guy's in England. Sorry about that. We had a little mic cord issue. It fell out of the mic. Anyway, so I was saying that in Europe, especially Western Europe, there's other places where they're creating these, bands of training tools, and it's going to come here eventually. It's going to start in certain states or communities, certain, already like a lot of the local shelters. I think the humane societies and all them tend to be against it. But we have to circle the wagons, not because we're having a knee-jerk reaction, because we've seen these things help dogs. And all these people who are talking about it, you hear them speak. You can hear the difference between them just rationally stating facts. This gentleman is saying, listen, you're saying a better option is instead of using a training tool, put a dog to sleep or medicate it. Why don't we just see what training can do? Because we've all seen this, guys like us see it with our own eyes. So we have to circle the wagons to make sure that this doesn't happen to us, and it's not, dogs are dogs. So we want to make sure that it's, anywhere. These good trainers with experience who know what they're talking about are not being limited. And of course, it doesn't limit other trainers in other places soon enough, because it's the nature of things. We're getting into this very bizarre place in our world, that is very backwards in its thinking. It's really all this overly, but it blinds us from seeing what's going on. And then while the destruction is everything's falling in its wake. So this gentleman has from Take the Lead Dog Training. I'm going to get his name here real quick. Oh, come on. Let's go. So, yeah, I'm livid too, buddy. Trust me. But he's from Take the Lead Dog Training. I believe he's in England. And he's giving a challenge saying, listen, before you put these dogs down, because that's what they'd rather do, is put the dogs on medication or put them to sleep and say there's nothing we can do about it. But all of us have seen these dogs have been labeled that and fix them, in many cases, quite easily by tapping into what's really going on and creating a more balanced approach to the training. And this guy's saying, look, if you're going to put a dog down anyway, let me try. Let me show you. You'll hear what he'll say. And even then, they don't respond. This is how these people think. They're very hypocritical. They're very deluded. Under the guise of humanity, they want to show how they're helping dogs, but they're not. It's like the mindset of PETA. They'd rather put dogs down than make them go through discomfort. What's discomfort? Learning how to cope with everyday life in a way that is better for them, because I know I have a job. Plenty of dogs carry on to everyday life like it's going to be their last breath, with dogs that are reactive, dogs with anxiety, and addressing and resolving these issues makes their everyday life easier to navigate. So a little bit of that's me. I want to get in better shape. I was just hiking with a 45-pound kettlebell in 95-degree heat with a shitty backpack on, uphill. Not bragging. I'm just saying I want to get better at something. I'm going to have to feel some fucking pain. And it's not bad pain, because it's going to make me feel better the rest of my day, and it's going to be healthier and stronger and more active and be more productive and live longer, all that good stuff. So for a dog to not feel that way, it's our obligation to get over our emotions and to give them what they need, which is to be objective, to be rational, to see where we're projecting onto the dog, because that's what these people do. I don't want that on me. It's not you. It's not, they're not humans. And again, we're not trying to train them in a brutal way, like they're not sensitive, amazing creatures, but there are animals and they correct each other. And if you see them interact, there are checks and balances. And they do things with each other that are a lot rougher and more painful, if you want to label some kind of touching or physical thing on their body as pain than we'd ever do, unless you're irresponsible. And there should be someone regulating the irresponsible trainers, but also the irresponsible trainers who throw treats at dogs all day and then label them as untrainable. How many dogs have died because of that? Because they were inexperienced and too narcissistic to pass the torch to someone who knew what they were doing, but instead they wanted to vilify a training tool. I'll tell you before we start this video, my experience, I probably talked about this in the past. About a year ago, I got a call from another trainer who we just knew locally, just through, I think I met her once at an event. And she's like, look, I hear you talk a lot about these e-collars from time to time. And I guess that means not a lot, but sometimes I do, but I'm not an e-collar guy. So once in a while I'll mention it. Do you have experience? I'd like to see what they're like, and I have some other purely positive trainers. If you meet at my house, we can kind of do like a speakeasy kind of thing, like no one will know, right? I'm like, fine, I won't tell anyone, or I won't tell them your names. So I met him, I showed him, I did the whole demo, worked my whole thing with energy too, so they knew that I don't rely on these tools solely. I can rely on just me and connection with the dog and consistency and the leash technique, and the e-collar is just something separate. And all of them were like, holy shit, this is not even close to what I perceived it to be, and I really have to open my mind more than believing rhetoric of the cult that I'm a member of, because these people, that's why I'm not a balanced trainer. I'm just a dog guy. I just understand dogs, and I know what we have to do that's going to reconnect them with their owners, and it just resolves their problems. I keep coming back because they keep wanting me back because it's working for people. And a lot of these trainers on the positive end are delusional. It's not working, and they still want to talk about how it's okay, but instead of saying, I got to get back to the drawing board, like I give those other trainers credit who wanted to see what the e-collar was about, they just want to just say, blame the dog, blame the owner, blame the this, that, not me. Victoria Stilwell's the queen of that shit. Anyway, so let's play his video without further ado. God, I want to get his name. I just keep trying to scroll down, and I keep scrolling down. Anyway, Take the Lead Dog Training. He's a guy about, I'd say he's probably exactly my age. Gray beard and all. Nice man. I've seen his post. He knows his stuff. Supported by many other dog trainers I respect, including myself.
Absolutely livid by. I think it is disgusting. And what it relates to is a video proposition, an offer that I made that lots of people were kind enough to share. And I would ask that you keep on sharing that, because I think it's important that these people stand up and answer why they are doing what they're doing or not doing what they claim to be doing. And that proposition, that offer, was for the RSPCA, Dogs Trust, Blue Cross, Battersea, Kennel Club not so much, because they're not in the business of rehoming dogs. But the offer was to take one of the dogs that you're about to euthanize, any one of the thousands of dogs across the country that are about to be euthanized, and before you euthanize it, before you have that dog destroyed or killed, instead, give me a shout, email, telephone, and ask. I will work with that dog. Right? If I can't do it, I can't do it.
Okay, so he's not saying that out of a deluded place. He knows, because he has experience doing this for a long period of time and works with dogs that have been labeled that, and he knows, and he's not saying I'll guarantee it, but he's saying, can I try? I'm not going to, I just want to try, because it's not like there's a lot of these weird dog trainers and not even trainers. I know everything about dogs. I know better than this Cesar Millan and all that. Yeah, but this guy's like experienced, and he's telling you, like, let me try it, and they don't even respond. That's what I'm saying. They're insane. Like, even if someone was making sense to me on the other side, I'd be like, sure, I'll entertain that, but all these other side of people are delusional. They won't be self-aware enough to address what they did or said or won't do, and then they leave other people frustrated because they're just gaslighting the dog community. That's all they are. If you look up what gaslighting is, you'll understand. Okay, let's continue onward here.
Do it. I'm not a magician, but at least give the dog the opportunity to have somebody else work with it outside of the confines and the restraints of your own ideological practices.
It is an ideology.
Policies. Now, a trainer, an Association of Responsible Dog Owners member trainer, very good guy, forwarded that proposal directly to the RSPCA, asking, what is your thoughts on this? And, if you're going to say no, why are you going to say no? And not surprisingly, but infuriatingly, the reply came back from their head of science and policy department that whilst they do euthanize dogs, put in a way that I'm not going to say word for word what the email says, but put in a way that makes it sound a lot less often than it actually is. that they're not prepared to look outside of their existing policies where electronic
Right.
training
They won't
aids.
even admit the true numbers or the context of when they euthanize these dogs or they get rehomed or, I once worked with the Max Fund. I'll call you out, Max Fund, because I was going to work with you. You reached out to me and I went to work with you. And the first thing they asked me, other than the beautiful lady who was so upset at how I was treated when I came there on my own time, this was when I lived in Denver. And are you one of those non-purely positive trainers? I'm like, are you like a cult member? Like your eyes are glazed over and you're like just like in this rhetoric. And I'm like, whoa. I'm here to help. And there was the one dog that was there for like years and no one could even touch it. And within one interaction I had it wasn't thrilled with making it after, but we were handling it. We were getting it out on the leash. I was giving tips and it, oh, that's mean. You're not. I'm like, how is it good where she won't even let anyone reach in to touch her? We have to work through this, and the only way is to address the issue, not just make her hide in the corner of her cage, and that's it. She's never going to even be close to adoptable in this state when there's all these dogs coming through. And you know what? They didn't want to work with me also because I was willing to tell the owners that when they would come back with these dogs, they tried me out for a short period of time. You've got to train your dog. We told you that the issue was, and I'm here to help you, but you can't just come in and get a dog on impulse, and it's not what you bargained for because you got it from a rescue, and you don't want to put a few weeks' time in to establish a good foundation in your new home with the dog. And they didn't like that I was politically incorrect telling them what's up. Where does feeling good in any way, shape, or form going to help the dog in these situations? I'm curious to know, and I'm going to call, I don't know who's watching this, but if you're a purely positive person, you tell me, what way is what I just said going to help dogs through your kind of thinking? You repeat it. I think I'm making complete sense to people who think in a half rational way. But these people can't. They're just going to knee jerk. Now they're going to say I'm angry because I'm being passionate about something because I actually give a shit about dogs and not about appearances. I don't care about how I'm perceived as I'm this, that, I'm politically correct. It doesn't matter to me because I know I help dogs. You have to appear as something you're not because under an ideology, under the guise of helping dogs, you're actually killing them and hurting the people and limiting them from what's actually going to be able to help them. That's why we're speaking out so passionately about this whole thing. Okay, let's continue.
Where electronic training aids are concerned, even though the original offer didn't say I want to work a dog on electronic training aid, but that was the presumption, the assumption.
Electronic training aid is e-collar,
no doubt
shock collar, stimulation collar.
I probably would if it was necessary. If it wasn't, I wouldn't. But I wouldn't restrict myself to not doing. Anyway, so what they've come up and they've said, science has shown that the use of electronic training aids compromises welfare.
They always tout science. What is that? I could tell you science. I've been an applied dog trainer for 25 years, as is many of these other people saying whatever studies you're doing is so skewed and I don't think that's even real. There is conditioning. You can condition me. If Jordan said, Brett, lift up your couch cushion and look what's under there and there's a gold bar. He goes, put that gold bar in your pocket or wherever you want to store it. And there's another gold bar if you lift up the couch. And every time I did that, he would click a sound. I'm like, oh shit. You click that sound, I lift up the couch cushion, I get a gold bar, and it's endless. Do you think I'm not going to quit every single activity in my life and sit here and lock myself down and then start fighting people away from me? That's how conditioning works. And it's good to teach things, it's good to shape behaviors and reward accomplishment. But if you're relying on that as your science, that's what dolphin training is, not the connectivity and type of relationship we have with dogs. Not even close. Okay.
Leads to negative welfare effects or whatever. So therefore, not only are we not going to use or consider using an electronic training aid to benefit or save the life. This is saving the life.
Do you hear how irrational that is? This is the statement of that type of people, the RSPCA or whatever they are.
Or teaching it to go into a bed. You're talking about saving its frigging life.
Right.
And you're not
about
to look
teaching them
outside of your own
tricks.
existing policies. Because your belief is that, in fact, the considered application of an electronic training aid is more likely to cause the destruction of that dog than it is to help it. How in the hell does that work? You're killing it anyway. How can it be more likely to kill it than killing it? So I'm supposed to be on.
We're just frustrated, okay? We're angry people in your mind because we're reacting to the irrational gaslighting nonsense and of course, There's dogs at stake. They cannot fight for themselves, and you are fighting the wrong direction against the people who are helping and the tools that can. And you hear the same theme. He feels just like I do, and I don't blame him, and I don't blame anyone else as well.
Supposed to be on holiday. This is absolutely ludicrous, but I just wanted to give you the update. I've contacted a few people, and I'm trying to get. To be honest with you, I'm trying to get some media coverage on this because I think it is, and I don't not to do with me, nothing to do with me, but that actual decision-making process is fundamentally flawed. If you are a business, a charity, an association, an organisation that is enveloped in the welfare and enhancing the welfare of animals and improving the chances of an animal's success and a better life, and that is your mentality, that by doing that we think we're going to make it more likely to destroy the dog than the destruction that we're going to be doing anyway, is ethics beyond unbelievable. I am absolutely flabbergasted by that, and I would ask that you ask them yourselves, and try to get some coverage on this, because these people need exposing. These organisations need exposing. They've been exposed before, and they should be exposed again, because it is abysmal. Thank you.
That's exactly why I'm doing this podcast today. Again, Take the Lead Dog Training. He's putting out good, relevant stuff. I'm just sharing it. You can go on my Facebook. I've shared it too. But yeah, that he says it perfectly. This is ridiculous. I'm hardly an e-collar guy. I don't speak about it a lot, but this is it's not the e-collar per se. It's the mindset of the people backing these bans. This has to stop. Why don't people take a step back and see, are there really that many dogs being rehabilitated through these types of thinkings and ideologies, and how many dogs are miserable living with their owners with these behavioral issues that aren't even in shelters and being put down for them? So this is an epidemic. That's really what the science should be looking at, is doing statistical studies on how many dogs are imbalanced based on the type of thinking humans are partaking in, the more me, indulgent, narcissistic type of thinking versus maybe a few generations back, and how dogs might not have even shown these type of issues. And dogs still live with people a lot even before then, So I'm just curious, is it really the dogs? Is it really the tools? Or is it the mindset? And those people with a certain kind of mindset are the ones banning the tools that, when rationally used, they're not doing any harm for dogs. Okay, that's good. I think we made some good points on this podcast. Again, the podcast, The Dog Savant, subscribe, review, share with your friends. Go on my social media. Go on my website. You can link to everything, thedogsavant.com or dogtrainingla.com. You can go either way. My show, The Untrainables, will be out on Saturday, September 8th. Please support that. Really share. We want to get a big following here. I want to get this to keep going, and I can't do it without the people supporting, what I'm doing. My Patreon, The Dog Savant. You can find me. Support in any way you can if you're willing to. That'd be awesome. And I'll keep doing this free content as well. I'll do it either way, but it would really be helpful. And keep listening. Stay tuned, and stand up for your dog and stand up for their rights to be trained how you want them to be trained. Thank you.